Welcome to the Weiss Schwarz market update for September 18th, 2021. I want to start out with Hololive. Hololive is coming out for Japan on September 24th, the trial decks, and then on October 1st, you're going to see the booster boxes. We know this thing is going to come out for English. There's a huge amount of hype for it. The cards look really amazing. So by checking out the Japanese release, we are going to see foreshadowing of what's going to happen in English. And I do those buy or invest videos, and this is one of those sets where it just doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter about the meta strength, just because this thing is so hyped up, just because of the characters involved. And when I mean characters, I'm saying the VTubers themselves. So there is a whole lot of attachment, emotional attachment to these people, that this is just going to do really well. Again, supply is going to be an issue when it comes to can you get your hands on it and how much is actually out there. Like when I think of Seven Deadly Sins, we knew the price dropped because of the amount of supply. For this one, it doesn't seem like there's going to be enough of it. And again, if Weiss Schwarz was actually be able to tap into everybody that likes Hololive, then this set should do pretty well in the long term. And I just want to show you some pictures. Again, to me, it doesn't matter what the cards actually even do. It just doesn't matter. Just because of the nature of this product, who is actually in this product, it's not going to matter. And all of these cards just look amazing. Right, so that's it. I'm just going to scroll through this. You can take a look. It's going to be really, really well received. For people that didn't know, there are card reveals every day on the Weiss Schwarz website. So if you scroll down on the page, you'll have a card of the day down here. Again, we are on the Japanese site. To get to the English site, you would just type in en dot or remove it to get to the Japanese site. So to keep up with everything that's happening on both of the sites, just check it out every day. It's pretty cool. And let me just click in here. So as you can see, we have World Trigger card of the days. And then we also have Hololive down here. So there are some really, really cool, nice looking cards to see and just check out. Again, when it comes to Hololive, who cares what it does? I mean, people are going to buy this just because of the card art itself. Let's just be real here. The one thing that's actually amazing to me is the Bushiroad Global Online Store. All this time I've been saying that there are these deck supplies. So you have sleeves, deck boxes, playmats. The one weird thing is they didn't have all the generations. I felt like they were going to have all the generations. Maybe they were just slow rolling it. They were just kind of putting some out and then going to put out the others. But at this point, I haven't seen the 4th or 5th generation show up. I don't know if that was I don't think it would be an oversight. I just wondered what actually happened here. So if you're looking for generation 4 and 5, not going to be here. They do, as you can see, still have some deck boxes left out there. Out on the JP site as well, we have card reveals for DanMachi. And as you can see down below in the product page, we do actually have Bell's sign card, which actually looks really, really cool. And then his Climax combo as well. We got Hestia's SR. I was hoping to see her SP since we got Bell's up there. And obviously to the right of that, we could see Ice with her card. And it looks freaking awesome. I can't wait for this. It hasn't been announced for English. I would imagine it's definitely coming out for English. I don't know what would actually stop it from coming out, but we're still waiting on that announcement. Last but not least, we have Tokyo Revengers coming out on May 13th for both English and JP formats. And because of that, we have a new release schedule. The release schedule effective 9/14/21, and what we have here is Tokyo Revengers with the set date, which again is kind of weird since we don't have Rent a Girlfriend, Mishoku Tensei, and Hololive. It's still blank. And again, I will reiterate that these are too early to pre-order, so if you're pre-ordering and the person is requesting the full amount of money, I would pre-order from those places because that is too early to be handing someone your money. Way, way, way too early. We do know that at least this will, we don't know the order, but that'll be February, March, April, which then makes sense that Tokyo Revengers coming out on May 13th. And speaking about Tokyo Revengers, just a little anime note here. I don't know about all of you, but today should be the last episode, I believe. So who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be really cool. It's going to be exciting. I know a ton of people are waiting for it. And again, that makes sense as why Tokyo Revengers was picked up as a Weiss Schwarz title. Moving on, let's go to the price tracker section, and we're going to start out with Nazarick Tomb of the Undead. If you haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock, what is going on is a possible reprint. So there have been some notable sales of product over the past week, and it's going to be super unfortunate for those people if there is a reprint announced sometime this coming week. So what is going to take place is if a reprint happens, the booster boxes will be reprinted. And what we saw with Data Live is the boxes went from, let's say, $150, kind of seems familiar, right? $150, and now they're sitting about, let's say, $69. So they dropped a massive amount after the reprint happened. What will not be reprinted is the trial decks. That did not happen with Data Live, and as part of that survey on Nazarick, there was no trial decks mentioned in there either. So anybody that has owned this, let's see, Albedo, you're going to be really happy because it's not going to be reprinted. If you own this Eins, it's not going to be reprinted. But what we saw with the Data Live reprint is double R's took a hit on average 50%. SP's roughly the same thing. So overall, if a reprint happened, it's going to devastate anybody that's been collecting the stuff and I guess thinking about selling it. So it's one of those moments where right now you have to make that decision. Do you, if you care about short-term money, you have to make that decision on, do I sell this stuff now and hope there is going to be a reprint because that's why you're selling it, or you're going to hold on no matter what, not going to look at the prices. You love these cards and it's not going to matter what happens. Those are the decisions you have to make, but sooner or later this week we will find out what's going to happen. This week there was some changes to the double rares, and as you can see here, Blue Rose Evil Eye actually went up 81%. I know 81% sounds like a lot. It went from 263 to 477, but it is 81% in the end. And what we can see here, Blue Rose Evil Eye has 13 sellers, and all it took was 4 cards to sell. So there were some cards priced kind of low-ish and not anymore. They were bought up. So that for some was because shipping. I added shipping. Obviously, if you were to just buy a couple more, you'd get free shipping, but my numbers include shipping inside of them. And why are people doing this? Because this isn't the only one that actually sold. So we have Shout here that sold 1. I have Nave here that sold 4. And, you know, again, Blue Rose Evil Eye sold. So I would imagine someone is building a deck or just speculating at what's going to occur this next week. I feel like it's more deck building than anything else, just by the cards that were actually purchased. Because if you really wanted to buy all this out, you could easily do it. Blue Rose Evil Eye, even though it has gone up in price, it's not like it's $10, right? Like if I were to go in here right now and just do it myself, if I add up all of these, it's not going to take a whole lot of money just to do a whole buyout of this. But again, there are other sites that actually have this card, and there's other people that are willing to sell it. So I can imagine, as with all the other sets that I point to, that if you were to attempt to buy this out, there's going to be other people to show up. And even then, if a reprint were to actually happen, now you're going to be stuck with cards that you probably won't be able to sell at the price you bought it at. So I wouldn't do that as well. But what's been going on is this has been bought out again, or well, not bought out, it's gone up in price. And it is a usable card. So that's why I say again that this has nothing to do with someone actually buying out. I think someone just actually wants to play Nazarick. Maybe it's because people have been talking about it so much in the past week, 2 weeks, that they're like, oh, I want to play this deck. And you know what? It's actually cheap enough to do. When I think of Nazarick, I think of Data Live because possible reprint. When I take a look at possible reprint, again, what I did here was I put in the price since the reprint, like how much of a drop. So I compare this date here which is July 17th, with the current date and how much it's dropped since. So I end up with 54% drop in the double rares when you take a look at the SPs themselves. So SPs, I remember back in the day that this thing was at least $200. Now it's $100. This thing was $250-ish, and now it is $168. So the double rares and also the SPs have taken a drastic hit. Where's our Kurumi? Here's our Kurumi. There's Kurumi. No change. You know, again, this thing doesn't sell for what it used to. You could basically say because of the reprint, it's dropped definitely over 50% at this point. I would say probably like 60 some. I'm not doing the math here, but that's what it comes out to be. When we take a look at Data Live and the actual weekly change, it's basically stable, I would say. There's not really much happening to it. This one right here, Terrible Spirit Kurumi, is the highest of the cards, and it's just going to fluctuate up and down depending on the patience of the seller. And that's all we're seeing at this point. These prices aren't really changing at all, just because I think people are just giving up on it. Like, you know, they set the price and it's just whatever it is. If it sells, great. If it doesn't, then I guess that's how it's just going to be. Let's talk about our good friend Fate Stay Night Heaven's Field 2. Heaven's Field 2 is interesting just because, again, it was one of those weaker sets without Volume 1. So if you didn't own it, it wasn't one that you're going to aim for. It's one of those ones that you could easily have just picked up a bunch of singles and you were good. You didn't need to have to buy a playset, because a playset, unless you wanted to have all the cards, they weren't going to be all usable to you if you owned Volume 1. And I just want to take a moment here to say there's been talk about playsets and buying them at 300. I know I made a video about it before, but more so, if you just take a look here on the double rare playset, 140.76 is what it's going to cost to get those. Again, you're not even going to need all these freaking cards. And then overall, if you wanted the playset without tax, without shipping, 237.26. So you, my viewers, I will never tell you to just blanket buy a $300 playset, because obviously, if you've been watching this video enough, it doesn't make actual sense to buy a $300 playset when, for one, people start selling it for $275 and $250 because they get desperate. And then if you just want certain singles, you can actually easily do so and not have to worry about like overpaying and getting charged. Again, we don't all have just a bunch of money. So to just tell people that $300 playsets are okay is just insane. You know, let's just take a look at Seven Deadly Sins here, right? Like that is the worst advice you could actually ever give someone. And again, my viewers, I'm going to tell you that some sets, $300 playsets, make sense. This one, you can argue it made sense if you really wanted it, but it's not going to be that case for every set. So playsets, 300, needs to be evaluated for every different set, and to just generalize and say $300 playsets is freaking terrible. I mean, if you want to blow your money and waste it, feel free, but I'm going to tell you that if you're not going to use all those cards, you might as well buy singles probably like 3 to 4 weeks after. Heaven's Field, one of those ones where, you know, you could have bought a playset if you wanted to save some time and effort, but again, it's one of those ones, if you just wanted to max out the potential of your dollars, that all you had to do was wait a little bit, and that $300 playset just proves that it wasn't worth it to buy the $300 playset in certain scenarios. So what we have here too is Heaven's Field did not actually have signed cards on it. They have these stamps, and as we see here, not much has happened. For the most part, most of these cards actually dropped in price when it comes to the SPs, just because, again, not many people want it. So when you have a ton of supply, no signs, what's going to happen is you're going to have a dull demand on it, and that's what we're seeing here with Heaven's Field 2. As I alluded to here with Seven Deadly Sins, what we have with Seven Deadly Sins is more of the same. Actually, it's gotten to the point where not really much has happened. It's been, let's see, it's been about 6 weeks since it's come out, and we're pretty much at a stable spot. There is a huge supply of it. Again, playsets 228.63 without trial deck, though if you go on Facebook, I'm pretty sure you can find someone at 200, 225. They'll even throw in the trial deck. So not that difficult to get. $300 playset in this scenario didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was a terrible idea if you went to buy it. And if you bought the trial deck, then I guess it would be $330. So you lost a bunch of money on that one. And again, it's not, sometimes it isn't about like selling or what your deck is worth. It's about having a good time. But at the same time, I don't want to miss out on other products because I spent $300 on a playset. Doesn't make any sense when you could have gotten it for $200. That sounds like a better deal to me. $200. So that's all you have to do. But as you can see here, this hasn't really changed all that much. When you take a look at the actual supply set, this hasn't changed all that much. I was actually tracking supply set because no one really talks about all that much. The prices on this don't really change, and it's one of those ones where if you asked me, should I invest in these things, I would tell you no. We'll see what happens with Ruby and Data Bullet because they have promos in there. Data Bullet, same promo in every supply set. But Ruby has 4 different promos, so I don't know how that's going to affect it. But at the same time, overall, when you think of a generic supply set, not really going to do too much. It kind of sits there for a really long time. It's one of these long-term holds. Supply sets, I don't think, are one of those ones, if you're investing, that you should be looking at it too hard unless there are those extras included, like those promo cards. When it comes to trial decks, what I've said before is you need to watch out how much you buy into these things. When again, you take a look at 7 Deadly Sins, not much has happened in this past week. There were some sales, but at the same time, there is so much supply of it because everybody was like, oh, Elizabeth SP, they're going to want it. And when enough people get that same idea, that's when you have oversupply. And now you have a bunch of people with product that doesn't actually sell. When you take a look at the double rare, same story. Again, there is so much supply of it and people can't get rid of it that now you're just having depressed values and you have these, depressed actual play sets. So there we are. Again, good for the players. So anybody that anticipated like this huge amount of supply was going to happen, I predicted that. Then you would have known to just wait on it and buy the singles that you would have needed. The one thing that is actually of note is the SPs, and they haven't really done much. The big one here is Bond. So if you wanted Bond, we have a few sales. Not a ton, right? But if you look at the month of September, we got 5 sales. Again, it might not be that much, but it's not like there was a whole lot of them to begin with. So there are 4 out here still left. If 5 got bought in September, you can do the math. You can see here, Bond is actually the rarest of, and Diane actually. Diane and Bond are actually the rarest of the 2. So if you were looking to pick up any of those, not to say that there isn't more supply of it out there, you could just tell that there have been an uptick of purchasing for those SPs. Kaguya, there isn't really much here to talk about this week. As you can see, Kaguya is not really moving at all. Chica, though, Supreme Bliss Chica, she is the only one that has a nice gain. Kaguya herself, -9 down. Overall, again, with Kaguya, it's one of those ones where over time you're going to notice this thing just slowly sell out. And this is perfect. This is beautiful. This is exactly what you want to see happen. People that want to play the set are buying the cards that you actually need, and you can tell again by the numbers that are being bought, you can basically tell it's either someone buying it for a deck or someone buying it for a collection. And since this is a pretty good deck, that is what is actually occurring here. And again, with the booster boxes, when you take a look at the booster boxes, it's a slow sell out. And again, this is perfect. This is what I actually want to see happen. Since last week, 7 boxes have sold. You're down to 10 sellers, and you're basically at 11 boxes left that are under $90. Once you break through this wall, you're going to start seeing basically $100 booster boxes, and it's pretty much over. Again, there are people that have this stuff still out there somewhere. You'll see that with Bofuri, that people will just add the supply back in. But again, with this product, once it sells out, it's gone. It's one of those ones where these are the moments where you have to figure out if you want to buy this or not, because sooner than later it is eventually going to run out. And that's the same with all of these double rare cards when you take a look at Kaguya. So when you take a look at the double rares here, you could see that there have been some buying on this K, because you need this K. And you can see the card numbers here. Again, makes sense to me that someone is actually buying it to play with. Right, so here's Kaguya. There are some buying. Just today, there was 4 card playset bought. Chica as well. You can see a bunch of these cards have been bought. So for sure, Kaguya will eventually sell out. I don't know how long it's going to take, but you can see that there is some decent buying happening, and more than likely, for me anyways, it's because people want it for their actual decks. When you take a look at these cards here, these signed, well, unsigned SP cards, not really much has happened to it. It's basically the same. Prices have just been someone up, someone down, but even then it wasn't all that much. There was like 3 cards sold this week overall out of all the SPs, so nothing really to talk about here. Last but not least, we have Bofuri. And Bofuri, if you remember, I was going to end tracking it. Like the one week I said I'm not going to track it, I didn't look at it. And then I saw the booster box go crazy and the double rares go crazy. And I'm like, forget it. I'll just track it just to see how this all ends. And this week is one of those weeks where what I've said before is if you wanted Bofuri, well, technically you wanted it weeks ago. But if you haven't gotten it yet, this is one of those last call kind of moments. Because as you can see here, everything in green is what, well, this one went up 3%, but not very notable. When you have something like Saint Misery here going from $3.99 to $10, that's pretty huge. And that's not a bad card. Saint Misery, pretty good card. I like it anyways. When you take a look at Overlord, what I said here, 81% jump, but that's from 263 to 477. When it go from Bofuri, freaking $4 to $10, that's a huge difference, right? If you need 4 of those, you're paying $40 for it, and that hurts a whole lot more than it does on let's say $17, $18 worth. And there we are. So you could take a look. Multicolored Sally, you need her. She's up. Battle Craftsman is. So all these cards overall, this is one of those last call moments if you need some. Some of these are still in the cheaper end, but as you can see, the amounts are drying up. People do put cards back up, like Battle Craftswoman is. If you go back to my last couple videos, you could see where, maybe 1, 2, 3 show up, but eventually it sells out, and the same thing just happened again. So it has sold out. I don't know if someone's just sitting here watching it to buy it when it shows up right away, but no matter what, this was a decent deck. It's a fun deck. So if you get bored of playing Weiss, playing meta decks, then these decks here for Bofuri, pretty fun to play with, I think. And as you can see here, you're not going to have a chance at this point anymore if you don't get it soon. And with that, that is the end of the market update for this week. The next video I'm going to come out with, ideally anyways, is my quintessential quintuplets, unless something else comes up before then. But my quintessential quintuplets, I'm so excited to do it. It's very simple in nature, but it's something I've always wanted to do. And since I've been playing around with editing, I think it'll be a whole lot of fun. And we'll see if that comes out first. Again, I don't know. I think my wife wants me to clean up all these cards back there. I don't know if you can see it. There's a bunch of Data Live cards back there. And I need to do that video as well. But first off, I want to finish up the quints just because it's one of those ones where I actually am having such a fun time doing it and reliving the moments that it's amazing, and I hope I can share that with all of you coming up. So with that said, have an awesome week until you see me again.